sixth period, thank you for choosing Nat and KK Today for your Throwback Special broadcast. I'm Natalie and I will be your political reporter for today's episode.
And I'm Carson, your cultural reporter. Now let's take a closer look on the hit song We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel.
Wheel of Fortune, Sally Ride, heavy metal, suicide, foreign debts, homeless vets, AIDS, crack, Bernie gets, hypodermics on the shore, China's under martial law, rock and roller, cola wars, I can't take it.
To start off the afternoon, let's dive into one of America's favorites, Wheel of Fortune.
Grab that for me, please. Thank you. Follow me.
Thank you.
Wheel of Fortune has been on the air since 1975. The current nighttime version, which began in 1983, has accounted for over 30 seasons in its own. Merv Griffin first conceived Wheel in 1973, while his other major creation, Jeopardy, was in its 10th year on NBC. He decided to create a game show based on Hangman and added a wheel to it.
Emil, don't spend this all in one place. $45,000.
Up next, a personal favorite of Natalie's and Mr. Grayson's, Sally Ride and her breathtaking adventures into space.
Dr. Sally Ride studied at Stanford University before beating out 1,000 other applicants for a spot in NASA's astronaut program. After rigorous training, Ride joined the Challenger shuttle mission on June 18, 1983, and became the first American woman in space. For her contributions to the field of science and space exploration, Ride received many honors, including the NASA Space Flight Medal and the NCAA's Theodore Roosevelt Award. She was also inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame and the Astronaut Hall of Fame. On July 23, 2012, Sally Ride died at the age of 61 following a 17-month battle with pancreatic cancer. She will always be remembered as pioneering astronaut who went where no other American woman had gone before.
On a more serious note, a disease that affected thousands of sexual relations, AIDS.
On June 5, 1981, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention published a Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report that described the cases of a rare lung infection, PCP, in 5 young, previously healthy homosexual men. These men had unusual infections involving the failure of their immune systems. These cases are the first official reports of the AIDS epidemic. Other cases had a cancer, Kaposi sarcoma. By the end of 1981, there was a cumulative total of 270 reported cases of severe immune deficiency among gay men, 121 of them already dead. In January, the first American AIDS clinic is established in San Francisco. In 1982, the condition had acquired a number of names, one of them being GRID, which stands for Gay-Related Immune Deficiency. A total of 20 states had reported cases among heterosexual men and women. Over half of those identified as heterosexual had used intravenous drugs at some point. Not until July of 1982 was the name AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, used.
That I have attained, I will have to retire from the Lakers.
In September 1986, early results from clinical trials involving AZT, zidovudine, a drug that was first investigated as a cancer treatment. In March 1987, the FDA approved AZT as the first antiretroviral drug to be used as a treatment for AIDS. As a result of the new HIV treatments in the US, the number of those affected by AIDS has reduced significantly, from 130,000 annually to less than 50,000 annually.
Let's take a closer look at heavy metal and the detrimental effects of suicide.
Although suicide is a rare and tragic event, it remains one of the leading causes of death during the adolescent period, depiction of suicide through the media that has received important public criticism is music, and more specifically heavy metal. Ever since the creation of rock and roll in the 1950s, adolescent musical preferences have been a subject of concern for adults and health professionals because of the controversial topics it refers to, such as sex, drugs, suicide, deviance, Satanism, and more. Different types of heavy metal are death metal, speed metal, and thrash metal, all with different tempos and effects.
Okay, now let's dive into the scandalous affairs of Bernard Goetz, from past to present.
On the New York City subway on December 22, 1984, Bernard Goetz, a 45-year-old white male, shot 4 young black men after they surrounded him and asked for $5. After wounding 3 of the unarmed men, Goetz pointed his gun at 18-year-old Darrell Cabby. He was not wounded, but was hovering, terrified, in the subway car, and said, "You don't look too bad, here's another." Goetz then shot Cabby in the back, severing his spinal cord. 3 of the youths recovered, but Cabby was paralyzed and suffered permanent brain damage. Goetz, who fled the scene of the crime, turned himself in to the police in New Hampshire 9 days later. During his interrogation, Goetz admitted on videotape that when one of the threatening young men smirked at him, he wanted to kill them all.
If I had more bullets, I would have shot them all again and again. My problem was I ran out of bullets, and I was gonna gouge one of the guy's eyes out with my keys afterwards. You can't understand this. I know you can't understand this.
More recently, in 2013, Goetz was arrested for the sale of marijuana to an undercover cop.
Refreshing, but would Pepsi agree?
The Cola Wars were a campaign of television advertisements and marketing campaigns between soft drink manufacturers, the Coca-Cola Company, and Pepsi.
Is that all you got?
I'm up to my knees in 0 calories. Pepsi to the max, so let's drink all of these.
What's Snoop doing here? We're tight.
Pepsi Max, 0 calories, maximum Pepsi taste.
Now, for a different type of Coke. Crack cocaine.
Cocaine was the most popular recreational drug in the 80s. It was frequently used by youth because it was so cheap, plentiful, and highly addictive. It was also glamorized by Hollywood. Hollywood celebrities, professional athletes, and rock stars gravitated toward cocaine in the 1980s. Cocaine and crack were so rampant in the 80s that in a 1986 poll, crack and cocaine won out over alcohol for most abused drug. But as the numbers of cocaine users rose, so did the people jailed for it, and with that, there were several anti-drug policies such as Just Say No and DARE that lessened cocaine use in following decades.
I'm in love with the coco. I'm in love with the coco.
Thank you, Carson, for that outstanding cultural report. Now, let's talk politics. China under martial law.
China under martial law took place in Tiananmen Square on April 15, 1989, just outside of Beijing, China. Mostly students protesting led the march. The martial law took place because the people in Beijing were demanding more democracy. The march continued on until June 4, 1989, when Chinese military fought their way into Beijing and crushed the movement, killing hundreds of people. Martial law is a temporary government controlled by the military authorities of a territory or state.
Here's something a little closer to home. Now, let's dive straight into the havoc-filled shoreline of New Jersey and New York.
During 1987 and 1989, a large amount of medical waste and garbage washed up onto a 50-mile stretch of the New Jersey shoreline. All beaches were closed while officials determined the source of the waste, which they later found was originated from Staten Island. New York was later forced to pay for the cleanup.
Struggling from the crucial aftermath of the Vietnam War, PTSD-affected veterans filled the streets, homeless.
In addition to the complex set of factors affecting all homeless, extreme shortage of affordable housing, livable income, and access to health care, A large number of displaced and at-risk veterans live with lingering effects of post-traumatic stress disorder and substance abuse, compounded by a lack of family and social support networks. About 1/3 of the adult homeless population has served their country in armed services. Current population estimates suggest that about 58,000 veterans are homeless on any given night, and perhaps twice as many experience homelessness at some point during the course of a year. Many other veterans are considered near homeless or at risk because of their poverty, lack of support from family and friends, and dismal living conditions in cheap hotels or in overcrowded, substandard housing.
Up next, something I don't even think Mr. Grayson will stay awake for. The harsh reality of foreign debts.
In the 1980s, the world experienced a debt crisis in which highly indebted Latin America and other developing regions were unable to repay the debt, asking for help. The problem exploded in August 1982 as Mexico declared inability to service its international debt, and the similar problem quickly spread to the rest of the world. To counter this, macroeconomic tightening and structural adjustment were administered, often through the conditionality of the IMF and the World Bank. This crisis involved long-term commercial bank debt, which was accumulated in the public sector. The governments of developing countries were unable to repay the debt, so financial rescue operations became necessary. Now we will review all the events mentioned and where they're located. Sally Ride was born in Los Angeles and embarked on her great journey into space. The tragedy of the AIDS epidemic originated in San Francisco. The scandalous affairs of Bernie Goetz occurred in New York City. The events following China under martial law occurred in Beijing. The unusual occurrence of hypodermics on the shore happened in New Jersey. Although heavy metal was a nationwide phenomenon, the first heavy metal band, Black Sabbath, originated in Birmingham, Alabama. And finally, the first episode of Wheel of Fortune was filmed in Burbank, California.
Wheel of Fortune. Sally Ride.
Not long ago, we would walk on the sidewalk, innocent, remember?
AIDS.
For each other, but the night was warm, we were bold and young.
Heavy metal and suicide.
Hold on to let go. Focus, fire gun, we need someone to lean on. Focus,
Bernie Goetz.
somebody to lean on. Focus, fire gun, we need someone to lean on. Focus,
The Cola Wars. Crack, cocaine. China under martial law.
What will we do when we get old? Will we walk down the street?
Hypodermics on the shore.
Standing strong as the waves roll over. And the nights are long.
Homeless vets.
All around, the wind blows. We would only hold on to let go.
Foreign debts.
Someone to lean on. Focus, fire gun. All we need is somebody to lean on.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, this is an exclusive. This is a prime example of why people should not do cocaine. This is a prime example, but so is that. Did you just give us a peace sign?
I took a chance with my heart.
Natalie,
Yeah?
we're not supposed to be promoting either side. You have to stay neutral. In the Coca-Cola Wars, that was so bad. It's the tiger cat.
Oh my
The
god.
tiger. Wait, can you say that again?
Coke is better.
Okay, thank you.
Tiananmen. Okay. Throwback special news broadcast. Throwback special news broadcast.
We have for you one last topic. Really, Avi? Really? Now let's take a closer look on the hit song "We Didn't Start a Fire."
Okay, let's go. We'll do it again.
Okay, one more time. We didn't start a fire.
Like an idiot. Maybe in 7 years you'll be wise enough to like Coke better. Shots fired.
Yeah.
Cute.
Oh no, that's cute. Okay.
And on music sensation Billy Joel's Verse.
Okay, that was good.